These stories are taken from the book Mainline Engines Again. James and the Trouble with Trees. Thomas the tank engine had been working in the coal yard all day. The little blue engine was covered in coal dust. "We can't clean you up tonight, Thomas," said his driver. "There's a problem with the hose pipe." "Bother," said Thomas. "A bath will make me feel much better. The others are sure to say I look silly." But the engines were too busy arguing to notice Thomas. James was talking loudest of all. "I deserve a new coat of paint. The Fat Controller says I'm the pride of the line and—" "Rubbish," huffed Henry. "We are all pride of the line." "It's been like this all day," confided Percy to Thomas. "James is getting a new coat of paint and won't stop boasting about it." "Why, James, I'm the one who needs a new coat. Look at me." "I'd rather not," retorted James. "You're not a pleasant sight, and wouldn't understand the needs of a really important engine." Thomas was fuming. Next morning, as Jane was being repainted, Henry had an accident. He caused the trucks to derail at a buffer. "If you can't push trucks properly, Henry, why not talk to a tree instead? You know how much you like the forest. As a matter of fact, Bossy Boiler, the Fat Controller is inspecting the island for trees that are too close to the line. He's worried they might cause trouble." "Ha!" laughed James. "If I came upon a tree, I'll just push it aside." "Oh, really?" replied Henry. Soon Jane was showing off his paintwork. "Make way for an important engine." "You wouldn't feel important if one of those trees crashed on you. You feel hurt," approached Percy. "Rubbish! It wouldn't dare." "You should be careful, James. Trees can be just as powerful as engines," advised Terence. "Pa!" snorted James. "Now, if you excuse me, the Fat Controller needs me to pull the express." And he puffed away. But James was wrong. "You must go to the yard and collect a good strain, James. It's heavy, so be careful," said the Fat Controller. "But sir, I just been repainted. Can't Thomas and Percy do it? They're dirty and like working with trucks. Really useful engines don't argue." So James didn't. By the time he arrived at the yards, the weather had changed for the worse. "Your color's nice, James. Pity about your face, though," said a truck. James ignored them and set off. Soon they came to a hill, and his driver knew they were in for a difficult time. An old tree close to the track was being blown by the strong winds, and the rain had weakened the slope. All of a sudden, the tree moved. James sees the tree ahead and comes to a halt. "Oh, help!" cried James. "Go away!" But of course the tree couldn't. James tried to reverse away from the tree, but his train was too heavy. Then he heard a whistle. "It's Thomas," called his driver. Thomas was coming along the line when he saw everything. James felt embarrassed and worried that Thomas would laugh at him, but Thomas didn't. He knew this was no time for teasing. "Beep beep, I'm ready," whistled Thomas. "So am I," James replied. "As ready as I'll ever be." They were just in time, as the tree landed on the ground with a loud thump. Later, James spoke to Thomas. "Percy and Terence were right to warn me," he said. "Thank you for rescuing me, Thomas." "Oh, that's all right. We engines must pull together, whatever the weather." Just then, Edward bustled in. "The Fat Controller heard everything and thinks you're both brave engines. Thomas, you're going to have a new coat of paint. And James, the Fat Controller says that tomorrow you'll pull the Special Express." Everyone was very happy. A better view for Gordon. Gordon was feeling grumpy. This was making James cross. "Why are you complaining all the time?" "Because I'm a big blue engine and I know everything. I shall complain whatever I want. You are just a small red engine with ideas above your station." "I can't see any," said Percy. "Where are they?" "Any what?" "Ideas above the station. The sky is empty." "Like your smoke box, Percy," laughed James. But Gordon was still grumpy. "One day I'll show you just what a big engine can really do." "So what can a big engine really do?" "Not speak to silly little green engines for a start," replied Gordon, and he puffed away. Later that day, the Fat Controller came to see him. "Gordon, the big station has been done redecorating. You'll be making one stop today with the MT Express to test out the station. You can make up time afterwards. Why can't Henry do it? He likes idling at stations. You will do as you are told, came the blunt reply. So Gordon did. But he was still unhappy when he arrived, and he began to grow sick too. I just can't get up to speed, he moaned. It's time for your visit to the works. Your pipes are clogged, said the fireman. Gordon was impressed with the station's new look, but his mood soon changed. In front of him was a blank wall and huge buffers. What a boring view! Important engines like me should have a panoramic view where I can see people and people could see me. He grunted and wheezed angrily. Gordon was happy when it was time to leave. Now you could really enjoy your run as long as your pipes will let you, said his driver. Come on, I can go faster than this, huffed Gordon. Sick, me, never. But Gordon began to feel more and more feeble, and soon he came to a complete stop. What happened? He explained. His driver and fireman inspected him. Something's broken inside you, Gordon, said his fireman. Now you really will have to go to the works. Gordon was still fuming when James arrived to collect his coaches. Well, so much knowing about everything. You got too puffed up in your boiler, so it serves you right. When Gordon returned from the works a few days later, he was feeling much better, though he could feel something was not right. Come on, Gordon, we're going to the official opening at the big station. Then there was trouble. As Gordon approached, neither the driver or fireman could apply his brakes. Something had jammed. The driver reduced steam, but Gordon was still going too fast. The crew and the Fat Controller jumped clear as Gordon raced through the station and crashed into the wall. Help me, please! As Gordon was being rescued, the Fat Controller spoke to him. Well, Gordon, I knew you wanted a panoramic view, but this is not a way to achieve it. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir, muttered Gordon. When Gordon was prepared again, he took the Fat Controller to the big station for a second official opening. This time he arrived safely, and everyone clapped and cheered as he pulled in. The Fat Controller spoke to him. Your panoramic view is here to stay. I trust that you will always see through it from the safety of your own rails. Gordon heartily agreed. What's the matter with Henry? It was the end of a busy day. Henry returned to the sheds feeling ill. What's the matter with you, Henry? Thomas asked. My boiler's grumbling. Maybe it's grumbling at you. That's not funny, hissed Henry. You just don't care. But Edward saw that Henry was leaving a puddle of water behind. He was worried. The next morning, the Fat Controller arrived. Thomas, Percy, and Henry, I would like you to collect some coal trucks and take them to the docks. Yes, sir, cried Thomas and Percy. Henry was about to say something till everyone left. He had no other option. Useful engines don't complain, Henry muttered. He was leaving water everywhere as he chuffed towards the coaling plant. When Edward saw this, he was more worried than ever. Hurry up, Henry, Percy tooted, who was far ahead. I can't go any faster, Henry chuffed miserably. You're just being lazy, teased Thomas. Anyway, we'll see you there first. By the time Thomas and Percy reached the coaling plant, they had a naughty plan. Please, sir, said Thomas, Henry wants to pull more trucks. He is bigger, added Percy. The yard manager agreed. Meanwhile, Edward was talking to the Fat Controller at his station. I'm worried about Henry, and he explained. Perhaps his tubes are leaking. You better check, replied the Fat Controller. By the time Henry reached the coaling plant, Thomas and Percy had already left. Why did Thomas and Percy leave me so many trucks? He moaned. They know I'm not feeling well. We'll still have to take them, said his driver. Henry chuffed and puffed and pulled his long line of trucks. You can do it, Henry, encouraged his driver. But it was no use. Henry ground to a halt. He had run out of water. Are you all right, Henry? Edward asked as he arrived. No, I'm stuck, he moaned. Edward changed tracks and hooked up to Henry and the coal trucks. Oh, thank you, Edward, wheezed Henry. Edward and Henry pulled into the docks. Well done, Edward, said the Fat Controller. Thank you, sir. Then he spoke to Henry. You were brave, Henry. You weren't well, but you still tried to pull the heavy trucks. Thomas and Percy felt ashamed. We're sorry, Henry, said Thomas. We didn't think you were really sick, added Percy. Go and arrange his truck straight away, the Fat Controller said sternly. Yes, sir, both said. Come on, Henry, let's get you to the works. The Fat Controller watched the two big engines left. He was worried. With Henry now at the works, he's going to need another engine to handle the goods trains. The world's strongest engine. Henry will be at the works to get his tubes replaced, said the Fat Controller to the engines that night. There are no other engines available, so Diesel will help until Henry returns. Yes, sir, huffed the engines, but they weren't happy. The engines didn't like Diesel, but they couldn't help it as he was the only engine available. I hope Henry's mended soon, said Percy. He moves more trucks than 3 Diesels put together, agreed Thomas. Trucks are no one's friends, huffed Gordon. The next day, Diesel was working at the yards. When the Fat Controller sees how good I am, he bragged to the trucks, he'll get rid of steam engines once and for all. At first, Diesel managed things very well, and the trucks, unfortunately, did suffer the brunt with him. A few days later, they decided to pay him back. As Diesel shunted them together to ready for the next train, they started to sing. Is that all you can haul? Henry's loads are longer. Is that all you can haul? Henry must be stronger. Diesel was cross. He was sure that he was stronger than Henry. I'll push you all at the same time, he said. The trucks giggled. Push us all, that's the longest. Push us all, you'll be the strongest. That's me, said Diesel. The world's strongest engine. And Diesel shunted 5 trucks together. Then 10, then 15. Soon he had an enormous line of 20 trucks. What's Diesel doing? Cried Percy, watching on. It looks like he's trying to be the world's strongest engine, thought Thomas. They watched on as Diesel backed onto the train. Diesel didn't know that the shunters had set the brakes on the trucks. The troublesome trucks knew, but encouraged Diesel to push anyway. Push, push, push! And Diesel pushed. And he pushed. But the trucks didn't move, so Diesel decided to pull the trucks instead. Heave ho, you can pull but we won't go, sang the trucks. This made Diesel very cross, and he pulled and pulled. The coupling between him and the trucks began to strain, until it snapped. Help! Grease and oil, Diesel sobbed as he went over a pier and landed on a barge, as the trucks laughed and laughed. The Fat Controller looked down crossly at Diesel. I thought you could manage trucks after your last visit here, but I was wrong, he said. Just then, Henry came into view. He had returned from the works. Henry, just the engine I want to see. Can you make up for lost time with this goods train? Oh, yes, sir, Henry replied happily. He backed up to the trucks and the shunter released the brakes. Then Henry pulled away as easy as pie, and the engines cheered. Diesel was sent home in disgrace on the barge. The engines were glad that Diesel was gone. Looks like troublesome trucks can do you a favor sometimes, chuffed Thomas. Like getting rid of a smelly old Diesel, chuffed Percy.